Take two. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another episode of REDFELLAS on the Sunday night. Your favorite LFC channel, your favorite LFC show. Sunday night, packed full of goodness. Back to the original time of 9 p.m. because no more Love Island. Keith looks a bit sad and depressed and homeless as a result of it. But the rest of us are chuffed to bits. We're back, 9 p.m. So much to get through. You're all very welcome. Please hit the like button as you keep strolling through. First and foremost, we welcome Nikhil Alvarez, who become the latest channel YouTube member. And don't forget what Grizz says. Smash the likes button as you enter, folk. Good evening, everybody. Full house indeed, Eunice. You're not going to get this kind of panel anywhere else on a Sunday night, 9 p.m. This is box office shit. This is the type of panel that you need when you've had the weekend most Reds have had, because this is where the therapy is at. Yep. Good evening to the big dogs. The big dogs are in town today, people. Himanshu says 481 likes to 500. Wow. That's some feat if we can get there. Let's start going. Yeah, let's get going. Let's get going, people. Evenings, brothers. This lineup is as good as Jota, Carvalho, Nunez, Firmino, Diaz, and Salah. I wouldn't disagree. But you're all very welcome, people. Over 100 of you guys in here already. So I expect the likes to be up, the percentages already. I've got, as you can see, some wonderful, amazing humans with me to talk on all things Liverpool, Fulham, all things Liverpool, injuries, all things Liverpool FC, full stop. Evan, my man, what's happening?
You know, I'm fresh, Grizz. You know, we were talking briefly off stream that you might feel a bit worn out by the weekend. You've had to talk about it before going live here today. I have not. You know, it was 4:30 a.m. kickoff for me in California. So I woke up, watched the game, and then immediately went back to sleep because I had a big day ahead of me. So I needed all the rest. Win, lose, or draw, I needed to go back to sleep after the game. So therefore, I've had nothing but time to sit and ruminate on my opinions, and I've been saving them all for this star-studded panel, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
You hear that, people? You know, that's probably the best thing, man, when you have to go back to sleep after watching the game because of the time zone and everything, right? Mm-hmm. So as you said, win, lose, or draw, so you can go to sleep with a smile on your face, and like, you know, if someone sees you smiling in your sleep, God knows what they think, what you're dreaming about. But if we have a result, you could be scowling in your face, and you have a scowl on your face in your dream, but then you need that sleep to get over it. So I think it's the best scenario. Steve, how's your weekend been, my friend? How's things?
Not too bad. Obviously, you and I did the call in, so we've had a little bit of a go at this. I've kind of reconciled things to a degree. Doesn't mean I haven't got opinions and things to say, but I think I've kind of reconciled the status quo where we're at and what have you. So be interesting to listen to what the other boys have got to say. So bring it on. Let's get it out. Let's get it spoken about, and let's put it to bed.
Absolutely. Dinesh says, "Evening, everyone. Last night in Kenya. Is that how can you let us know if you took that picture live? Is that your picture, your profile picture, or is that just a Google image? Because if you've taken that picture like while out in Kenya, that's amazing.
That is impressive.
Yeah, you're an absolute titan, man, if that's the case. Flight back to London 9 a.m. Hopefully don't miss my flight. I hope you don't miss your flight, bro. Especially if you've got those animals prowling around at night where you're staying. Brother, I hope you don't miss the flight back. Conor. Conroy. How are you?
I'm good. Well, I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. Like, realistically, we have to look at life in general. I am good in that sense of the word. But yeah, no, a bit. I think we're gonna break up. This is what this show is about for people listening in. The chat, as always, is their input is just as important as ours. And it's very therapeutic to have this show, to be honest. You mentioned sleeping through the Evan Dunn. I was going to say, mate, you must have thought it was I was going to swear there. You must have thought it was a nightmare when you went back to sleep after that start. Maybe that's the one thing about going back to sleep. You might not realise that it's actually happened. When you wake up, you might think it was a nightmare. So, yeah. But, all in all, happy to talk about it tonight. I think it's going to, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. And I'll be honest as well, just a side note, because I don't want this is not our show. We don't look at other clubs, not what I'm doing. But I saw a certain Mr. Keith tweet about Graham Potter today. I'd just like to say, and Grizz has got my back, that I've spoken about Graham Potter for the past 2 years.
Before it was fashionable.
Before it was fashionable. But this is the usual, Grizz. He'll start it now. Not Keith, but in general, it's like Potter's such an amazing manager. He beat Arsenal with Ostersons in one of the legs, okay? He was a great manager. He was a very good manager then. So I just want to add that Potter, Ten Hag's in the door. They would have been cheaper just getting Potter because he literally could do a great job with any team. And he will. And there's this talk about him being an England manager. Why the hell would someone at his age want to be an international manager? That's just typical English media as usual. But yeah, just wanted to mention that on Potter because Keith's in the club now. He's in our gang now, the Potter merchants, Chris. So
Keith,
the G signs are out. The G signs are out, baby. To
me, Keith, that was a dig at you. I'm not.
It wasn't a dig. It wasn't a dig. I was just laughing because it was all. That's all I saw on Twitter today, and I've been relating to his performance at Anfield for the past year. So,
fair enough. No, it's true. It's true. But I'm disappointed in Conroy and not mentioning me being a fan along with him. He singled himself out, but didn't give me the glory. But it's okay. I'm used to it with Evan not giving me any flowers for anything. So I'm used to it with these boys. I'm used to it. But Keith, I know you've been watching Brighton, Man United, and reveled in it today. I know you were smiling behind the scenes. But did it make up for Liverpool's misdemeanors? Did it make up for anything negative that you may have felt? Because I don't know if you felt anything negative. We'll get into it. Yeah. But you're one of those guys that very much a glass half full.
Do you know what's so funny? There's a reason why I never come on the watch-alongs, because I'd ruin my image. Because when I would ruin my image. My missus goes to me, you don't sound like a supporter when you're watching Liverpool. You're always effing and blinding. And that's exactly what I was saying. So yes, could this all be a front? I don't know. No, I'm good, man.
It's all in that. He's calling Henderson everything under the sun in a watch-along.
God, that's why, man. You can never find me watching live. It would be terrible. But yeah, no. I'm good, man. I had a barbecue today.
So, nice.
I ate my sorrows. The sunshine is back in the UK. Just a side note as well. I managed to get my British citizenship a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, so now I'm officially a British citizen. I did a video on TikTok, right, to show the whole ceremony in the day. Just hit 100,000 views on that. So
wow.
So anybody wants to know how to become a citizen in the United Kingdom, holler at me, follow me on TikTok. You know where it's at.
Shout out your TikTok handle, whatever it's called, because I don't know.
It's called the 30 Plus Chronicles.
Is that what it's called? Yeah.
That's what it's called. Yeah.
People, first and foremost, of course, a round of applause from all of us and everyone in the chat.
On the citizenship, not going viral.
No.
Decisions are not going viral.
No. On the citizenship, yeah. Big up, man. Well done, and congratulations to you and of course your family for that. And the rest, people go and check out his TikTok. Fuck knows what else he does on there, but just go and check it out still. Do you know what I mean? TikTok. My God, from Love Island to TikTok, man. I need to reevaluate your place in the panel.
Well, every panel needs a pretty boy, innit?
Okay.
Well, pretty boy wannabe.
Pretty boy, no. Handsome, not pretty. See what I'm saying? Pretty is with TikTok and Love Island. You're handsome. You know what I mean? It's different. We've got a super chat we want to get out of the way first and foremost before we get into the chat. Mr. Dare I say it, Drifty, who's not Drifty in the picture and he's not Callum, but I love that name. Don't worry, guys. Bajetic, Morton and Clarkson will replace Milner, Ox and Naby next season. Then we'll hear the next season bullshit, same old, and I think that means crap or shit, whatever. I don't think that will happen, firstly and foremost. But if you think that's going to happen, then I understand you'd be frustrated. And if that was to happen, I'd be frustrated. And every single one of us would be frustrated, pissed off, whatever. But we don't really think that's going to happen, guys. But I get the frustration and the anger, especially after yesterday's performance. LFC786 sends in a general super chat. He says, advice to LFC fans, lower your expectations in the Prem. Genuinely, it's not worth the heartache to watch the inevitable happen. Midfield neglected. We should focus on the cups. Our team suits them more. Not a great start to the comments.
Wow.
But respect to them. Respect to them. I'm here to air their comments and discuss their comments, opinions, I should say, as well. But let's get into it. I'm going to come to Evan, the freshman. Freshman means something else out in the US, right?
It's your first year in high school or college, freshman.
Yeah. So you're not a freshman on here at all, but
Definitely not.
But you're the freshman.
I'm a sophomore on GrizzCon TV. It's my second season on GrizzCon TV, so
What's
that would
it called?
make me a sophomore. So, and that the Greek translation is a wise fool. So you know more than freshman, but you're still an idiot. So.
Okay, fair enough.
That's what that meant. That's brilliant.
Yeah. I didn't know what that meant. But yeah, Evan, for always the fountain of knowledge in certain things, I may add. Okay, Evan. As I said, me and Steve done I done a 3 hours. Steve was there with me for about 2 hours, I think. We done a call-in show, which was immense yesterday, and had all kinds of opinions and theories on the game, on the start to the Premier League campaign for Liverpool Football Club. Just want to get your thoughts, just overall riding thoughts before we get into the lineup and the events. Just your overall feeling before the game and then after the game, without the middle part.
Okay, so before the game, I'm pretty relaxed. I said this last time I was on stream. It's been quite a long time since I genuinely cared about a starting 11, or I should say a starting 11 is a make or break sort of thing for us, because we've been operating at such a high level for so many years now that the days of seeing Alberto Moreno in the starting lineup and things like that, it's a bygone era. So oh, it's Firmino instead of Nunez. Oh well, you kind of just shrug, because that's what it is. We have some great options everywhere. So when I saw the starting lineup, that's just how I feel generally 90% of the time these days. And with all due respect to Fulham, I did not see a world in which they could live with us, and I'm basing my knowledge off of what I've seen from Fulham in the Premier League in recent years with this kind of same crop of players. Obviously, things would go much differently than I had thought. And I was left after the game. Obviously I instantly went to bed, had a little depression nap before the rest of the weekend. But I was left feeling pretty deflated. It was a different type of disappointment than just dropping points, because dropping points has that stale feeling of depression every time we do it, right? But this one was that plus a different feeling I had, which was almost exhaustion. Like I should feel fresh going into the season, but that result deflated me. And it's because yesterday's result doesn't give us anything new to say about our current options in the squad, with the exception of Nunez. With the exception of Nunez, yesterday's result doesn't give us anything new to say. The dominating conversations of the summer months about, are we strong enough in this position? Are we young enough in this position? Do we have the right profile for this position? Do we have enough people in this position? Those conversations will continue based on yesterday's evidence and due to any evidence we will see in the coming months. And that for me is disappointing, because I really like it. One of the reasons I love it when the Premier League season starts isn't just because I can wake up and watch my favorite team play. It's because the conversations around transfers are done. And as we know as Liverpool fans, our conversations around transfers can get very toxic very quickly. And, so it's nice when the season starts to leave that behind. But because of the way certain things played out yesterday with certain players in certain positions and injuries and things like that, unfortunately, the conversations that, like I said, have dominated the previous 2.5 months of our lives will continue for the foreseeable future. So that in its own way was pretty deflating.
Yeah. Just a couple more super chats I want to get through. LFC 786 says we need to gain a lead on City before the World Cup, at least 4 to 5 points. But here we are, game week 1, and already 2 points behind. Lol, great. Mr. Derase Drifty says, who's ready for Klopp to run Diaz, Nunez, and Salah into the ground by May? Simi over Robert, sorry, Hendo. Sorry, Conroy. Hendo over Fab, very aggressive, technical side. Oh, against very technical and aggressive sides. That's definitely one of the conversations we'll be having as we go on. People, there's 320 of you in here. I expect the likes ratio to be at least 60 to 70% based on the panel itself, based on the looks of the panel, the way they talk, the way they walk, everything about them. I guess start off with the lineup. Pretty much nailed on as we expected. No real surprises. Was that a surprise in itself?
Yes, because I've decided in my mind that Henderson, Thiago, and Fabinho is a safe midfield. It's a resilient midfield. That
you said that all week.
Yeah, and I wanted us to be more expansive. And it's no surprise when Harvey Elliott comes onto the pitch, bits and pieces get done because the guy's a really good link player, and he makes a difference. And I think we could have I would have, and who am I to say this, because I'm just the guy who comes on here and chats shit, do you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I would have gone with a bit more flair. It was an opportunity to take the game to them. When you have that midfield that's quite deep and quite, at times, stagnant's the wrong word, but lacks dynamism, so it doesn't push forward, it doesn't create opportunities, because of certain types of player profile in there. I think we needed to take the game to Fulham a little bit, and it's unusual. I felt the back line was really deep early on in the game. I thought we got bullied, and I think that comes because we played a safe midfield that didn't really offer too much going in the direction. So for me, you always knew Fulham were going to turn up. First day in the sun, first day of the season. Welcome back to the Premier League. Liverpool are in town. They won't play a bigger fixture all season. That's the biggest fixture of their season, done on day one. Damn right they turn up and have a bit of a party and put on a bit of a show for the fans. But we've seen this before. Leeds did it a couple of years ago when we managed to get through 4-3. This is what these teams are. They're dangerous. And I just thought we had a passive selection. I thought in terms of the midfield, we went bereft of creativity, but we certainly didn't have players who were exciting and imaginative. We kind of did the sensible, tried and trusted trio, the three of them, and for me it just didn't work.
Conroy, it didn't work for me, especially in that first half. And wasn't it ironic, Conroy, the week that our assistant coach brings out his book called Intensity. And so therefore all week, all we saw on news accounts was quotes from this book talking about how we operate and just glorious things to read. I mean, I haven't got into the book yet. I've got the book. I haven't got into it yet. It's not been a good week to read about intensity and Liverpool, but I will get into it. Wasn't it ironic that we made, in my humble opinion, the worst start to a game that I can remember possibly since, and when I mean start, I mean like sort of 45 minutes.
No, I think West Ham away was horrendous because conceding 2 minutes in that game and we were awful. West Ham away last season. That was probably the last time we were. Shall I tell you why I make this one of the worst? Because this is Fulham, and this is a promoted team on the first day. We should know what we're going into. As Steve says, packed house, sunny day, lunchtime kickoff, and we're trying to set a marker down. Everything that we spoke about in the week. So the intensity for me was non-existent. I found it lethargic, sloppy on the ball, and one-on-one battles being lost all over the place. That's why for me it was one of the most horrendous 45s that I've seen. Of course, feel free to mention comparable ones for you, and also try to work any indication of why or what
happened? What was wrong? Was it a case of too safe selection?
Not for me. I just think it's quite clear. I think sometimes we go in the technicalities of football far too much. I think basically I was probably too complacent going into this game. Liverpool have had a good record against promoted teams as well as of late in opening days, so I don't think there's like a pattern there. And if you want to relate to the last time we drew with Fulham, that's when we had a massively depleted team. So that's not a very good sample comparison either. But what I would say is, personally, they just look hungrier. It really is that simple. Virgil van Dijk's the best defender in the world, but that's probably his worst game he's had in about 5 years. All over the joint in certain points. He got done by Robson Kanu, by Mitrovic, who literally, you would say, comparisons. He looked quite fit, Mitrovic, don't get me wrong, but he's not exactly lightning, is he? I think he just had one of those games as well. I think they just looked hungrier. I thought Fabinho, one of the best DMs in the world, looked off it. I thought Thiago wasn't very good either, to be honest. I know we can't say that, but I thought he had a poor game. Unbelievable player. Thought he wasn't at it. I think our back line, like, fair enough, I don't think they were really great either. You spoke about Trent last night. I just think Fulham were hungry. They wanted it. Marco Silva's actually done well against us in past, barring when he's got battered. You do remember the Hull City result. He has beat Klopp in the past. He does know how to make it difficult for him. And I just think they wanted it more. It really is that simple. To me, from the very start, you mentioned Trent yesterday, looking like he hadn't slept the night before. To me, it just aired of complacency. And before we kind of could change that, we were caught in the trap of the momentum of the game. And Klopp talks about momentum constantly. And that's why I think he was fuming at the Robbo chance when he passes it to Diaz, because that can rescue us after the poor start. And I'll be honest with you guys, I think we get away with that if Virgil doesn't make that mistake for the penalty, because we'll probably go on and win. Because we've had games like that before. I'll be honest. I think just that penalty kind of knocked it, and that's where we ended up drawing. But for me, I just personally think they were just hungrier from the start. And Grizz, football isn't like this thing. It's like if you get a lead in a game, everything changes. So it's the momentum, it's the counter-attack, everything changes. Your game plan goes out the window. So if you're chasing, anything can happen in a game, hence why they hit the post as well. I thought Fulham I was very impressed, but I just think we're not hungry enough. You can talk about patterns of play, whatever. They wanted it more. And that was probably the best performance I've ever seen by Mitrovic, and coinciding Van Dijk, probably the worst performance I've ever seen by Van Dijk. So that's my thoughts on it, guys. Just thought they were more hungry.
Keith, the last time I questioned their attitude, and that's huge for me, being a top red apparently. But last time I questioned their attitude and desire was the Brentford game. Guys, do you remember we done a show afterwards? What was the score? 2-2? No, we lost. No, 2-2. 3-3.
3-3, that was.
3-3. This reminded me of that a little bit, because even though I thought Fulham were by far the better team, we still had chances to win it. And we still chances created. We hit the crossbar. We have an offside goal disallowed. There's a couple of other scenarios where Robertson has to find a simpler pass. The point being, Conroy's spot on about the desire and hunger from Fulham, but not often we can speak. Many of us or sections of the fan base can criticize maybe the technical deficiencies of certain players, or the mobility or durability or reliability, but very rarely can we accuse a Jurgen Klopp Liverpool team of not wanting it as much as the opposition. And I thought that yesterday, and my opinion was certified by Jurgen Klopp himself, because he came out afterwards and also alluded to the fact that I didn't like the attitude. Was that concerning for you as well?
Listen, when Jurgen Klopp is gurning like he's just left Fabric nightclub at 6 a.m. after a heavy rave, then you know we're having a bad game. Literally, his jaw was swinging after 10 minutes. His eyes could have popped out of his head like one of those old Walt Disney characters. But you know what I mean? Like you could see it. We all felt it. We knew what was going on. It was, without a shadow of a doubt, like the most lapsed performance I've ever seen from Liverpool. And yet we seem to do it when we go down to London. Maybe it's just something in the London air. They just seem to collapse. We all have like short memories as Liverpool fans. I think we went into this game against Fulham thinking that we were just going to walk it. We never really had an easy time at Craven Cottage, ever. if you look at all the games that we played over the years, Fulham have always made it hard for us at that stadium. And yeah, Conroy touched on the fact that we may have had a depleted squad, but we drew against Fulham the season before, and then they beat us at Anfield. Like, people forget about that as well. That was one of those 6 defeats. So Fulham as a team, they're not exactly a team that we should always think we should walk all over. So you've got that mentality from the fan base, and I think the players inhibited that kind of mentality. There were two selections that I thought were questionable from the start when I saw that starting lineup. The first one was Firmino, and I'll tell you why. Because the way we started that game for the first 15 to 20 minutes was not a game we were going to play football for a player like Firmino up front. We played so many long balls. We could not get out of our first half. Like, literally, Van Dijk tries to play long ball. Trent tries to play long ball. Fulham, to be fair to them, are pressing almost with three of theirs. So it's got Andreas Pereira, Decore Reeve, and Mitrovic are pressing our defenders and midfielders any chance to get. There is no space. And you know what? Fair play. They had their Weetabix, because anytime a Liverpool player picked up that ball, they set pressing traps all day long. So the style of play that would have helped release the valve was the one player that we signed for big money that eventually proved that actually those long balls would work, because it was direct balls for 2 of the goals, which ended up getting us 2 of the goals. So that, for me, Klopp has to just go balls deep from the start and start Nunez. You spent big money on him. The guy's fresh, no fitness issues, first game of the season. Do like what Pep did and start your main man from the beginning and go with him for the rest of the season. Trying to play Firmino in the style of play that we tried to play in that first half just didn't make any sense. The other one was Joel Matip. I thought Joel Matip looked leggy. I think Konate was definitely starting that game. From the start, Konate was going to be playing alongside Van Dijk. That injury forced Klopp's hand to play Matip. And I'm a big Joel Matip fan, but I just felt that he lacked the intensity, as did Van Dijk on the other side, who had the worst. Like, I agree with Conrad, had the worst game of his life in the Liverpool shirt. So, it was a case of certain personnel just didn't fit what we were trying to do in that first half, and neither did our mentality. And of course, Evan touched on it before. We then start going back to the conversations that we've had a million times. And if we're going to talk about people that have talked about things before anybody else, we've been on this show talking about the midfield since last season, right? We've always been talking about X, Y, and Z, but that wasn't the issue here, particularly in that first half. It wasn't a case of midfield trying to control the game. It was just a case of every 50-50, we couldn't win. Every ball in the air, we couldn't win. And every decision that we made on the ball was so direct to players that were not in those positions that it just didn't make any sense. The tactics did not suit the personnel in that first half. And I think that's why the house of cards came crumbling down so early. And to be honest with you, it's a 0.1, not 2 points dropped as far as I'm concerned, because we should have lost that match.
Evan, that's the most passionate and animated I've seen Keith in a negative way. And I think he's every right to be like that. Evan, I normally, when we have games like this where we don't start our usual intensity, and look, when you go away from home, you can have games where the crowd's up for it, promote your team, and you have to weather a spell in a game. You have to. That's part and parcel of football sometimes, right? And in this game, Evan, I kept just waiting for that storm to pass. And I thought, okay, 10 minutes, no problem. 15 minutes, no problem. We ain't been hurt yet. We've got away with a few situations. They're feeling it. They're pressurizing us. Like Keith, I was very impressed with their highlight. They were really pressing us. And then I thought, now we're going to pop off a couple of combinations in midfield, and then boom, we're going to release Salah or Diaz, and we're going to catch these fuckers. It never materialized. Instead, Evan, they take the lead. Did it come as a shock, horror, surprise to you like it did? No, the goal didn't. But the intensity and their intensity and our lack of was just left me bewildered. I was like, any second now, we're going to get our foot on the ball. We just didn't get the foot on the ball. Did it come as a surprise that it didn't? And B, what was the reason? Because, of course, we're going to have to speak about the midfield, because Keith's suggesting that the back line, or Matip in particular, he's talked about, was poor. I thought the three in midfield were atrocious.
Yeah, the midfield duo that we associate just with winning games and winning trophies, Thiago and Fabinho, they looked far off it. They looked like it was late June preseason for them in terms of how quick they were with the decision making. The touch was poor. I agree with you, Grizz, when you say that, there's a lack of intensity, and Fulham showed a little more, dog in the 50-50s, and they were winning almost every 50-50 in the first half, absolutely. But I also need to touch on our complete lack of technical ability over 5 to 10 yards in their half, in the first half. So in the first half of the game, when we would get the ball, when we would do the basics of building out from the back that we usually do so well, so quickly, one of the front three or one of the midfield three would misplace or overhit/underhit a 5 to 10 yard pass. And Conroy talked about recognizable patterns of play that we're so used to being a high functional world class team that we are. I counted 2, maybe 3 of our distinguishable patterns of play that we're used to. One, for example, a long diagonal from Van Dijk, a 1-2 with Trent and Salah, and now something's happening. Maybe it's not, we didn't create a chance, but things are happening in and around their box now. I've spoken on the show multiple times that Thiago on the pitch guarantees a siege of the opponent's box. I didn't see a single siege in the first half. So for me, it was less of, oh, they're winning all the 50-50s and they're tackling us before we can do anything in their half because they want it more. I would say maybe that was true in the first 10 to 15 minutes. Maybe we were just unlucky to be losing so many 50-50s, but technically we were so poor on the ball in their half. And it would take until the second half before we would start to see distinguishable patterns of play, and we'll get to the goals. So I'll hold my tongue on that. I was not surprised that they took the lead because it's a goal I've seen all too many times before. Jordan Henderson is an easy whipping post for this fan base. He is not solely responsible for our midfield being poor because, like you said, Grizz, Thiago and Fabinho hardly covered themselves in glory. He is not the reason we defended poorly. He's not the reason we were messing up passes. He's not solely responsible, I should say, for any of our shortcomings yesterday. But Jordan Henderson is an awkward fit for the right-sided 8 role in the current Liverpool system. I've been saying this for well over 12 months. I've been saying this for 9 months on this channel. This is not a Henderson out statement. This is me just stating my opinion. You guys are more than well-versed, and probably most of this chat has heard me say this, that stylistically the 8 probably doesn't suit Jordan Henderson anymore. And so the goal was a goal that we've conceded 5 or 6 times last season. I'm glad you brought up Brentford, Grizz, because we conceded this goal twice at Brentford last season. The ball's turned over in transition when we're in their half, and Jordan Henderson is so far up the pitch. He's pushed very high, and he cannot get back, and Trent is either double teamed at the back post or out jumped by a guy who's going to out jump quite a few people this season. So that's just kind of what happened. It was very predictable. As soon as I saw Trent dealing with Mitrovic by himself at the back post, I kind of assumed they were going to score, and lo and behold, they did. One thing that I haven't seen anybody speak about is Alisson. I thought
I knew you were going to say that.
In glory. Alisson does not cover himself in glory for that goal. He seems to be on his heels, and I get why. It's because Mitrovic, I think he heads it into Trent's head, so it's more of like a bounce off of a limb as opposed to a bullet header into the goal. So maybe the pace of the ball catches Alisson by surprise, and he's either on his heel, he shifts his weight too early, but it's a really pathetic attempt to keep the ball out. I'm trying to be careful here because I want to levy some criticism at Jordan Henderson for his role in how he conceded the goal. But at the same time, a lot of this is just the instructions he's being given. There was times where Jordan Henderson and Bobby Firmino in the first half were kind of playing the same position. That's how far up he was, just sitting next to Firmino. They're kind of moving around together. So obviously it's going to be very tough to go and cover for Trent when we turn the ball over, as we did plenty of times over 5 to 10 yards. So long story short, Grizz, no, I am not surprised that we conceded the goal. I think our poor start was more due to our lack of technical ability than maybe match fitness or intensity. and I am disappointed because, as I said with my opening statement on stream, what happened to our midfield yesterday will do little to dissuade the conversations that have happened all summer, and the manner in which we conceded, especially, will do little to bury these conversations.
I'm going to come to Steve next because you mentioned Alisson, and me and Steve done a show, and Steve had a view and an opinion because a lot of blame was being attached to Trent for the goal. Before I do, Trez Fresh sends in a super chat, says, is this a sermon? Man, I'm preaching today, 100%. 100%.
California.
100%. 100%. It's Sunday, man, so you've come to church, and we're going to give sermon after sermon today, baby. I want to bring this up. This is, people in the chat, I mean, did you just listen to what Evan just said even? Like, did you even hear what he said? You guys love to jump on Keita. Who likes to jump on Keita? Name names. But when it's Henderson, it becomes illegal. Evan just done a sermon on Henderson. What did you just hear? It wasn't illegal. I didn't ban him. But anyway, weird. Steve, the goal. I've heard your opinion. But there's over 500 people in there, and probably it was Saturday afternoon. A lot of people didn't hear our show. And they've tuned in for your opinion and version of events for the goal. Of course, a lot of blame is pinned on rival fans and, of course, Liverpool fans, pinned on Trent's lack of awareness, lack of fight, lack of making it difficult. But where are you on the goal? Is there anyone to blame? Or because I think the cross takes a deflection as well, guys. Correct me if I'm wrong. Does the cross take a slight deflection? Kind of loops in at the far post. Talk to me how you see that and who's to blame, because there is someone to blame in that position, right? Situation.
Yeah, 100%. I'm going to analyse the goal today or tomorrow, whenever that will be. Trent's probably got the least role to play in the conversation, because obviously we lose the ball, we stand shouting at the referee and they break. The guy accidentally trod on Henderson. That happens every game, and you'd be lucky to get a free kick there. It breaks. We don't stop the cross. First thing, you've got to stop the cross. You've got to do better to stop the cross.
Steve, I've got a question for you. One question. Just before that cross happens and the pass is made, is Van Dijk at fault at all for not holding that line? Because if he holds that line, they're offside.
Yeah, of course he is. Yeah, we've established Van Dijk didn't have one of his better games, and unfortunately there's a part for him to play in this. But ultimately, if you stop the cross, you don't concede. But we didn't stop the cross. We didn't stop the cross in the European Cup final either. We seem to have a little bit of an issue dealing with that at the moment. And it kind of, for me, and you can go back to last season, we concede chances down our left-hand side of our midfield. Since Gini Wijnaldum has gone, we're a bit soft there. Gerard Bowen carried the ball 40 yards for West Ham, and we should have taken him down with a tactical foul. And they score. Everton scored from that side. Brighton benefited down that side. There is an issue there for me in that regard. Yet we speak so much about Trent being the weak link in the defence. We're actually conceding as many goals from that side as we are from the other side at the moment, because that's where the cross comes from. So that's where the danger emanates from, not down Trent's side. We've got a 6'3" goalkeeper that's got a ridiculous presence in goal. Man looks like an absolute man mountain. He's got to come. He's got to take that ball because he's got time to see the cross coming in. And if he needs to take Trent and Alexander Mitrovic out at the same time, then that's what good goalkeepers have done throughout history. You come and take the ball, and you take whoever is in front of you, they get collected as well. If Adrian's in goal and we concede that goal, social media goes ballistic and he gets a hard time for not doing enough. We're protecting Alisson, and I get that we do, because his guy's in massive credit with us with all the one-on-one saves, and we love him to bits. So we didn't dig him out for it, but there is a question to ask about his positioning for the cross, and the header, similar to the West Ham header, goes in above his head. So he's not dealing with it. It's not a bullet header. It's an awkward header to deal with. Once Mitrovic is airborne, you can write Trent out of the equation completely because he actually used Trent to stay airborne, and that's fine. That's the physical contact that's allowed in that scenario. So there's no thoughts that potentially lent on him. It's a really, really poor team goal to give away. And I said the same thing after the European Cup final. We're conceding bad team goals when teams are scoring goals like that. Grizz, you said it on the call-in. Sometimes you got to hold your hands up and say, that's great forward play. All Mitrovic did was assess the situation, drop off, and prey on the smallest man in our back four. And the man that's not really in our back four to be an orthodox defender is there for creative purposes. So by proxy of that, you could almost call him the weak link. But there's two or three, Van Dijk not stopping the cross, and Alisson, that are bigger questions for me than Trent's role in conceding a goal. So it's dead easy. It's a narrative. It's a rhetoric. It's whatever you want to call it out there that Trent is this poor defender. He won 3 or 4 one-on-one battles with Real Madrid players in the Champions League final where if he doesn't win that ball, they're in and they win by a street. So that's a misnomer that he's a shocking defender. He's better than we give him credit for. It's just lazy attitudes from other people because we know because of his positions that he takes up, the switch into our right back position is always on for the opposition, and we by and large learned to deal with it. But this goal yesterday, the first goal, and the goal in the Champions League final come from the other side. He's just the unfortunate person who's marking the last man when he puts the ball in the net. And it's people without an understanding of football that go, there's your problem. Look at the bigger picture. There's much more to it than that.
Yeah, Steve's right. I'm just going to jump in and say it's definitely more of a collective failure. You know, you stick Mitrovic on any fullback in the league at the back post. I'll tell you one thing. That's not the last time he's going to make a fullback look like a child this season. Alexander Mitrovic does it for fun, to be honest. It's his entire game. And I'll go back to the Brentford game last season. We left Trent alone at the back post twice in that game against 2 or more players and or a player much, much bigger than him, and they scored twice. And so what can you say? Like, for me, Trent's not even a thought for that goal. And people say, oh, he should have jumped, he should have lent into him. Keep in mind that the ball comes off of Trent's back. Like we say, Mitrovic heads it into Trent. Trent is there. He takes all of the pace off the ball. But like I said, the way it bounces off of his back just seems to fool Alisson, who, yeah, should have done better. But Steve's right. You know, if you take the blame for that goal and, everybody takes a little bit of that percentage, you know what I mean? It's not like it was some catastrophic individual error. You know, for me, Trent's not even a factor in the opening goal.
I think it's easy because yesterday was poor. Like, he had a very poor game, and I think when you see that, it's an easy narrative to jump on. But I agree. I think annoyingly, again, he's got to stop the cross, Robbo. I do think he gets a deflection on it, but because he gets there, it's not as if he's there. He should stop it. He's annoying me at times with certain things he's doing. Like, it's up and down the now. It's like he'll have a good 20 minutes, and then he'll, like yesterday, he makes a block for they nearly score. He makes a great block, runs away with the ball, then gives it away. His form's very up and down at the moment. And then I think Alisson, I'd say Robbo and Alisson are more at fault than Trent. Alisson has got to save it. I have no idea what this is. This is terrible goalkeeping. He fumbles it into the goal. Like Alisson last week, literally, we won the Community Shield, and I didn't hear the end of it on Twitter, going at a guy who's just won a competition, and you're more bored about that than celebrating the actual win. Alisson, not good enough. That's terrible goal. It's right at him.
Hey, thank you, Conroy. Thank you, because of course, Trent. It's the dialogue on Twitter. Of course, he's going to get some heat. It's fine. I'm not complaining about that. But from our own fan base, Trent, yeah, he's there. The ball comes off his body. He has placed himself in between Mitrovic and the goal. It deflects off of his body. Could he have jumped? Okay, sure, maybe. But our self-proclaimed best goalkeeper in the world, who we proclaim this every other week because it's true on a good day, it's shocking. It's shocking, but I didn't see a whisper about it on Twitter. It's all about Trent. So for the people, in the comments saying, why are we making excuses for Trent? It's just like, why are we failing to see that this was a collective failure of a goal? I go back to what Steve said. This was a complete collective failure. But if I had to point one finger, I think the best goalkeeper in the world should be saving that. The ball is not in any corner of the goal. It's not coming in at any sort of pace. He just seems to be underneath it. He's completely just flapping at it. But, I just think we have to be more like intellectually honest. Like if you just watch the game, through Twitter, of course, you're going to condition yourself to believe that Trent's a liability, Trent's this, Trent's that. Oh, we're making excuses. I'd say stop being so casual. Like have an actual opinion that you base yourself. Like get your opinions from a different pool than Twitter.com.
I'm going to come to you, Keith, for the final say on this. I just want to have a quick sort of say on it before I let you have the full final say on it.
Mm-hmm.
The beauty of opinions and the beauty of watching football through different eyes is you end up with a different conclusion. And again, we spoke about this, didn't we, Steve? And I disagreed with Steve. So I'm gonna disagree with you two as well, because I'm of the opinion, pretty much with this opinion, which is fine. This is what it's about. Trent still got to do better. Gary Neville was class at it. I'm not comparing the but it's so simple. I do it in Sunday League. You jump to put your man off, schoolboy stuff. Why is it that hard to see? So absolutely, in my opinion, there's always a collective fault. In my opinion, there is a structural fault in transition where it's so easy for the biggest striker to play or prey on the weakest guy in the year on the far post. I think Virgil van Dijk, I think Matip should be aware of that in the transition whilst the move is being built. I don't recall where they were in that pitch. I also blame Alisson for not necessarily the saving of the shot, because it took a deflection and it might have unbalanced him. So maybe that's an excuse. And he's missed training, so he's not at his sharpest, just like the rest of the team weren't at their sharpest. But in my opinion, when you know that Virgil van Dijk and Matip haven't picked up the biggest guy, so when the keeper is looking around and he's saying Virgil van Dijk and Matip are one of those probably marking Pereira, who's not the threat in the air. You look for the big man, and you know the big man has pulled off from the far post to the weakest guy in the air. Then that's where I think I agree with Steve, and I think a couple of you guys, where Alisson has to notice that and be the experienced player and take whatever or whoever needs to be taken out, take them out. Mitrovic will always smash Trent in the air. There's no defending him, or there's no sort of blaming him for that. But in my opinion, Trent can make more. Looking back at the replay, Trent shrinks into him as opposed to making it hard for him. Even in the worst case scenario, if you realize or if you think that he's going to beat you, you try to, and even if it's given a foul, which doesn't give a foul, a lot in that situation doesn't give a foul because it's seen as a hustle and bustle. I think Trent can do a bit more to put him off. You're not going to stop him, but to put him off. That's just my opinion. Of course, I respect all of you.
I want to make it clear that, of course, he could have done better. Every single player involved with us conceding in that goal could have done better. Just as that shot could have been a little more in the corner. It's a game of margins. Yes, he could have done better. Like that's factually true. I don't disagree with that. But like the fact that we're ignoring.
No, absolutely. The sole blame shouldn't be on Trent.
Yeah, not you, Grizz, but the fact that the collective dialogue around Trent, the whole Trent can't defend dialogue, involves collectively ignoring every single other factor in the reason a goal is conceded. We have conceded, like I said, I'll go back to, we have conceded that goal that Mitrovic scored 8-9 times in the last 12 months. We have more adventurous midfield options now. The amount of times Henderson has successfully covered for Trent in defensive transition has decreased rapidly, probably just due to player instruction. It's not all Henderson is washed, Henderson is this, Henderson is that. But we need to be honest. Is Trent an elite defender? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that we need to be more cognitively aware of other things that are happening in the play. And to be honest, I think to the people who are hyper focused on what Trent should or should not have done in that scenario, maybe take a step away from the internet and just like watch the game, because I feel like the agendas from outside sources from rival teams are starting to poison our own well.
Infiltrate. Absolutely. I've said that
a little bit. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
do you remember, Steve, when yesterday someone asked me about that, and he said the weakness, it happens all the time. I said, well, let's look at it and let's try to analyze that without having the stats to hand. So for the 6 years that he's been playing as a right back in our team, 6 years, every single coach, player, pundit knows that the weakness is Trent Alexander on our side. So therefore, we're assuming in every game the tactic is to pinpoint or try to do that. Yet how many times have we conceded goals like that in 6 years, guys? Probably on two of our hands. So therefore, he's doing 90% of things right. And he's not a defender by trade, by nature, and he's 23. So his spatial awareness, his positioning, his learning the dark arts is yet to come.
Yeah, he's not the finished article there. But why would he be? This is the thing. I think you're right. It's like we're taking what other fans are saying because there's a bit of jealousy towards someone like that because he's unbelievable. Like, Keith, you retweeted something about Barcelona putting a bid in. Like, put a 400 million bid in. He's not going to go anywhere. And I think a lot of people don't like that fact as well because you've got someone who's from the academy. And I just think it's like he's going to get there. But see, now and again, you're just going to have to say it's a learning curve. He will improve. But are we going to say, do you know what? Let's put him on the bench. We're going to play. And I love that in Nathaniel Klein. We're going to put Nathaniel Klein in there instead. No. So let's stop going on that we're going to completely change the way we do it. It's not going to happen. We've had so much success with that way. We're not just going to rip it up. And I think he will improve. And he has improved. And I do think it's an easy narrative. Grizz, I get what you're saying. I do agree he should do better. But I think Robbo and Alisson are more at blame. And you can even say Robbo initially because he stops across, it doesn't happen. But then if you move it on, I'd still say their mistakes to me could have stopped that happening before Trent. Because I feel like Mitrovic against a lot of people, even if he does a bit better, Mitrovic could still score that header. You know, I think in some instances.
Look,
so
I think the whole purpose of the conversation is the differences of opinion, and I'd like to think I've brought up everyone's opinion. Sorry if I've missed your opinion. I didn't want to bring each person's opinion, but the difference of opinions, you know, it varies, and that's the beauty of it. And as Qaid says, it's a cracking discussion, can't lie. Keith, I'm going to let you finish off and have the last say on that, and then also because you've been listening to us three, then I want you to speak on the remainder of that half because we still have a goal disallowed. Diaz hits the post.
Yeah.
We still have a chance. Or did you feel no? You can't see us scoring. Klopp needs to rip into these and change something at halftime. So I'll let you have that period.
Yeah, I think my final take on the goal was it's a systematic breakdown. Like, you know, we touched on that as well in terms of like it's a team issue. You know, a sharper, a fitter, a more aggressive Fabinho stops Andres Pereira playing that pass in the first place. I thought when Henderson initially loses that ball and Pereira picks it up, you got Fabinho and Thiago right in front of him. Bam. That should be cut out. He should be looking left and right. He should not be able to just come back in there, turn around and play a pass to the wing and set us off on the counter-attack, which goes hand in hand with what we were discussing at the start of the show, in that the intensity, the buzzword going into this match completely lacked, because you should not allow players, midfielder, to have the freedom of the park when you're so high up the pitch. Now, when you're so high up the pitch, you also have this cat and mouse game going on between, and I need to remember the guy's name who was their wing back who put the ball in. It was Tete who put the ball in, right? I believe it was Tete. Now you've got a cat and mouse thing going on between Tete, Robertson, and Van Dijk with the offside situation. Van Dijk, normally he's the one that sets the trap, but for some reason he kind of labors in. He's the most deepest centre back of the three. Has he keep his line with Robertson, who's playing this cat and mouse game? Tete's offside. So again, these are the systems that we play in to win. We're intense in midfield and win the ball back high up the pitch as quickly as possible. That didn't happen. Andres Pereira has the freedom of the park. We play high line and we keep offside traps so we can make sure that we can catch people offside. We want more offsides by like hundreds of offsides more than any other team. completely. The line is completely all over the place. And of course, into what you guys said, I think absolutely a debate between whether Trent wins the header. Although I would argue that strikers are told to go peel off to the fullback and win a header at the back post. I mean, that's kind of bread and butter if you play it as a centre forward. So, you know, I mean, what Mitrovic done to Trent, he'll probably do to most other wing backs going forward. And the funniest thing is the general, like, I thought before the goal, I thought we started to find a little bit of opportunities of rhythm. In fact, the disallowed Diaz goals before they went 1-0 up. So that was the first time we caused some issues. Then we had the Robertson chance where Robertson he doesn't shoot, he doesn't cross, he kind of does something in between. And, you know, the only kind of criticism you could ever give Robbo is the fact that for such a forward-thinking left-back, for the positions that he gets himself into, his lack of goals, his lack of even hitting the target.
Well, actually,
really
no, he's not got a lack of goals, Keith. You'd say he should score more because he scored about 8 Premier League goals, which is actually a decent average. But I agree with what you're saying. But see, in that situation, he never shoots there. But for some reason, if you watch it again, I think he does shoot because he's like, usually when he crosses the ball there, he doesn't put his foot through it. He plays it with the instep. And if he'd done that in that situation, Diaz scores a tap-in. So I think he's overthinking those situations as well at the moment. I think he's thinking last week.
That burnt my head. I'm not going to lie. That burnt my head. And it obviously
You've got to make the keeper work. Make the keeper work.
No, but he usually just passes it across, Keith. And if he'd done it, there would have been because there was no really a covering defender. That's unlike him. See how you're saying he should shoot more. Usually he would pass. Like I know last week he didn't pass, but usually he won't shoot if it's not on. And I don't know. To me, it just looked like he thought, "Oh, I need to try and score," instead of just playing a simple pass. That was infuriating as well. Sorry, Keith.
Sorry, go on, Keith.
No, the last point was with Diaz. I thought Diaz hit the post, scored, but I think, you know, it's an uncomfortable conversation to have. But Diaz has got a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure on his back at the moment. And I think one of the biggest pressure is how him and Robertson connect, because the synergy between Robertson and Mane was night and day, right? And at that in this moment in time, that synergy is not quite there. I felt like the one thing that you always give Sadio, particularly in the early years, is he would almost get deeper to try and make things happen. I felt Diaz at times got too comfortable on the wing and almost waited for the ball to come to him to make things happen. And I feel like he kind of was a bit anonymous other than the 2 chances, which shows that, A, you've got all the quality in the world to make something out of nothing. But at the same time, when we're in situations that Evan alluded to, where the midfield and the defense are not technically there and aware, sometimes you need your Salahs and Diaz to come a little bit deeper, drag the ball out, or be available to drag the ball out. And that was something that Sadio Mane was very good at. And it was something that I felt we missed in that first half on the left-hand side. So that was just my other comment as we go into the next half. I thought he could have offered more in situations where we needed to unlock the pressure valve. But he showed his quality, right? He did show his quality to hit the post. He did show his quality to score that goal, but he needs to be involved more often.
It's worth saying that could improve as well, Keith, though, because I say, like, Man City looked reasonably good down that side. It is only one game. I think you see maybe a bigger sample size 5 games into the season. If there's a reoccurring problem there, we'll see.
Evan, halftime approaches. I guess we're all thinking pretty much the same thing in terms of, Jürgen, do it. And when we say do it, I think the majority of the fan base are saying, "Bring her, you're mute," probably for best. No, I'm joking. You're mute. I think we're probably to a man thinking, "Bring on the record signing," or are you thinking something different? Tell me what you're thinking, and then what happens.
Well, Liverpool need to do something different, whether that involves bringing someone on, whether that involves changing shape, whether that involves different instructions. Something new needs to happen, and he does come on almost immediately, as we will see. So it doesn't matter, that he doesn't start the second half. But you can immediately see what he does. He stretches Fulham. He absolutely stretches Fulham. And although he ends the game with a goal and assist, it's a fantastic official debut for Liverpool. It was Harvey Elliott that got us back in that game. Make no questions about it. I want to give him his flowers. Like as poor as Henderson was, like on the ball when he did get the ball in the first half in the right side of central midfield, I do think he was also held back by some instructions that were not great. Like I said, he was so far forward, not involved in the build-up at all. And he just, trying to link up with Firmino and Salah, it's not happening. Elliott is actually, even though we're going to remember him from that game for all the positive touches he had in the attacking third, he was dropping deeper than Henderson did at right central midfield. Trent had very easy 1-2 touch and go options. As soon as Elliott comes onto the field, we have our recognizable patterns of play back. The triangle between the right side and central midfield, Trent and Salah, the triangle that took us to 90 plus points last season, almost single-handedly, it's back. And it's no coincidence that we work those 1-2 wide triangles, and we immediately, Nunez almost scores and then immediately scores in the exact same way a few minutes afterwards. It's no coincidence. And for me, the main catalyst behind this is Harvey Elliott, because he comes in and he's playing how a right-sided central midfielder should be playing. And to Henderson's credit, last season, he had plenty of good games doing things like that in the attacking third, combining with Trent, dropping when Trent pushes, overlapping Salah. Henderson is tactically, the nuance on that guy is incredible. Maybe the legs just aren't keeping up these days. But make no mistake, the catalyst for us going from, well, fuck, we're probably going to lose this game, to we could win this game, as fucking shit as we've been, that catalyst for me was Harvey Elliott. Because Trent, Alexander-Arnold, and Mohamed Salah are already what they are. We already know that if you work well with them, they could become a world-class player like that, because that's what they are. They're proven world-class players. But Elliott is, for me, what unlocks that. We look like the Liverpool team I'm familiar with when Harvey Elliott steps on the pitch. And maybe he's benefiting from different instructions that Henderson got, because like I saw him dropping deeper and moving differently than Henderson. It's not just he has better close control and maybe a better vision in close quarters. But yeah, I just wanted to give the teenager his flowers, and I want to hype him up as much as possible, because given our midfield options, and I'm sure we'll talk about the injury, we might lean on him more than we've ever anticipated we might have to this season.
Steve, yeah, I thought I'm going to give Evan the Nunez, but pretty much spot on. Evan has decided to give the flowers to Elliott, or a fair part of the bunch of flowers to Elliott.
He unlocked our system.
Absolutely.
He made us look like Liverpool for me. Yeah.
No, I agree with you. Suddenly we saw passages of play that we anticipated, and I know you've wanted Elliott to be part of that anyway. You suggested it all week, Steve. But obviously a couple of other changes as a result of that, as a result of the substitutions. Thiago obviously comes off injured. Massive hammer blow. Fabinho is, I think it's fair to say, hauled off. And Henderson is put in the 6, and then Elliott takes up that role. And obviously Nunez for Bobby Firmino. Did you agree with the subs? Obviously enforced in terms of Thiago, but the other positional plays, because he could easily taken off Henderson and stuck with Fabinho. Did you think that was the right thing to do? Because I personally thought, and you know my ratings. Oh no, sorry, I was with Omar on the ratings. So just to put it out there, I gave Henderson 2 out of 10 for that first half, and I gave him 5 out of 10 for the second half. So overall, I gave him about a 4 out of 10 sort of performance. I thought he was better than Fabinho in the 6. I thought Elliott was miles better than him in the 8. And I think as a result, we just functioned far better in that second half.
Yeah, I wanted those changes. And I was championing Harvey Elliott to start the game. I think there's some caveats to add to this.
Mm-hmm.
A 6 sometimes can only be as good as the guys who are in front of him, left and right. Your 2 sort of deep-lying midfielders, in this case, Henderson and Thiago, who we've spoken about Henderson in the 8. There's a growing opinion within the Liverpool fan base that he should share the 6 with Fabinho. Or alternatively, we go for a double pivot with 2 out of the 3 that can play deep midfield, and a Carvalho or an Elliott in front of them to get us closer to the front line so we can be a bit more creative. it's a little bit more than a coincidence when Elliott comes on and plays the way he plays and Henderson drops into the 6 that you gave him a 5, because Elliott did what you're supposed to do on the right-hand side of a 6, do all the things that you would expect a 6/8, more an 8 than a 6 to do there. He was much more involved in the play. He was much more of a link play. He dropped deep to pick up the ball. We've all spoken about the things he did that we don't think Henderson did particularly well. I think across the remainder of the season, we might see a bit more of Henderson in the 6 and Fabinho missing out in games. He was taken off because he was poor. I think he would recognise that, but he got no support from the 2 guys playing in centre midfield with him as well. I think you can't not reference that.
Oh yes, agree.
Back on the game. Thiago has had a full pre-season. He's done look pretty sharp in full pre-season. First time we ask him to do match day things, he could be missing for 6 to 10 weeks based on this injury. We don't know how bad it is. We don't know the grading of the hamstring injury. So I'm sure we will before the end of the show. We'll get back to the question, why didn't we sort of strengthen in midfield? This is a glowing issue now. Curtis Jones isn't fit. Naby Keita's not well. There's not the depth there, and those are not the players that potentially are going to play in a sort of a resolute midfield anyway. We saw against Brighton that you can't play certain bodies, like you couldn't play Ox, Keita and Jones against Brighton because they'll run all over you. So you got to be careful how you do this. So I'm okay with Henderson or Fabinho in a 6. I'm okay with that. If you play either Carvalho on the left, slightly more advanced. This is something you and I spoke about, Grizz, where they go and get in touch with the front 3 and do a bit more bits and pieces around the edge of the box and be creative. Or you play Elliott on the right to do the same thing, but on the right-hand side, life becomes easier. That was a safe midfield. I said at the start of the show, that was a safe midfield. If you stopped that game and went aerial at any point, the 3 of them are in a line. I thought Thiago was too deep. I thought we were too deep as a team. I thought Thiago didn't help that. We never had an out ball, as Keith quite rightly said. We couldn't find an out ball. You don't get an out ball when you've got your midfield 30 yards away from your guys playing at the top of the front of your attacking formation. So when we bring Nunez on, Nunez does exactly the same as he did against Manchester City. He goes and says to the centre half, I'm going to play off your shoulder, sunshine, and you need to be very careful because I'm quick, I'm sharp, I can read the game. I'm going to sit right up top. I'm going to ask you loads of questions. An instant release for Liverpool in the sense when he came on to say, that's great. Bobby Firmino's picking up the ball in the centre circle. He's turning around and there's nothing in front of him. So this is where someone else has said it. A friend of mine said it. You're going to play Bobby. You maybe need to play Elliott or Carvalho because they'll run beyond him and give you options to pass the ball into somebody that's going to then turn around, face up, and get the 2 guys in Diaz and Salah into the game. But as soon as you put Nunez on, he goes asking. Nunez terrorised Ruben Diaz. I wrote a little piece about it that got published on Sports 5 if you want to go and read it. But basically, he terrorised him. He went right up on his shoulder and he pressurised him and he applied. Diaz didn't know what to do with him, and we've been saying Diaz is the closest thing to Van Dijk. This is what the world seems to tell us. But Nunez asks completely different questions. So if we've learned anything from the weekend's game is if we want to play with a sort of a defensive midfield, we need to have a centre forward that's asking questions of the centre halves on the opponent. So yes, the introduction of Elliott Nunez couldn't come soon enough. I went into half time thinking, wow, that was crap, and we need to be different. We need to see more of the ball, and we need to be better with the ball. And subsequently, when those guys came on, Elliott's come on twice in 2 weeks, and in the spells that he's been on the pitch, we've scored 4 times, and it's not a coincidence. It's because he's looking forward, Chris.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement. I'm in agreement with everything you said there, Conroy. We get the equaliser. You have dibs on the goal. He has a similar attempt just a few minutes earlier, doesn't he? By the way, guys, Evan didn't leave the chat because he had enough, or he was pissed off, or he didn't like our opinions. He's just got a few laptop issues. Let's see if he can sort them out. Conroy, Mohamed Salah becomes alive in that second half. Maybe it's sort of, I don't know what it's down to. Is it down to Elliott it's down to him hugging the touchline more, or whatever it is. Mohamed Salah seems a different beast. And part of that beastiness is his link-up play with Elliott, of course, like Steve's touched upon and Evans touched upon, and Trent becomes a bit more, dare I say it, plays the percentage passes, which in return means we do that siege thing. Who was you? Was you talking about the siege thing, or Evan? Like where we siege, where we
that was Evan. Yeah,
absolutely. So this was what we were waiting for. Talk us through the Nunez dynamic with Salah, because I know you've been crying out for a man who does this shit.
Yeah.
So he gets a goal before, a chance before, he misses it, or the keeper makes a tremendous save or hits his face or whatever. Yeah. And then we get the goal and we get back in it.
Yeah, I think as you see when he comes on, I know Evan touched it with Elliott's point in that goal as well, the kind of one-touch passing that releases Salah down that side, which is excellent play. Comes to Mo, and I think, to be fair, I'm not going to say he's suddenly started doing this, but he's had spells where you've seen him cross with his right foot, and you could tell he's got a lot more confidence in that. He's done it previously. I remember, I think Wolves, or he's done it a few games in the past, but the last couple of games you saw against Man City for the handball, that's a right-footed cross as well. And then it's also an early ball by Salah for Nunez's goal in the last minute against City. So you can tell he's actually, his mindset for getting assists and trying to play to Nunez's strengths. He is thinking about that. You can see that. And I'm not saying he's not a team player, but you can definitely tell that he knows that person can get a lot of assists through working with Nunez. So I think it's great play. It's a great, I can't remember if it's first time or he takes a touch, but whatever it is, right foot. For a left-footed player,
who plays him in? Is it Elliott who plays him in, guys?
It is Elliott plays him in with a first-time ball round the side. Evan, isn't it? I'm sure it is.
I'm sure it is. People will chill us in the chat if it's not.
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
Let's just say Elliott.
Yeah, and then obviously he gets it. The right-footed, great cross by Salah, low cross, and then it looks amazing. This goal, it is amazing. I'm going to give him. It's great technique, excellent. It took me a long time to work out how exactly it went in, but I think it originally looks like he just comes straight off his foot and goes in. Like, it's an amazing finish, reminiscent to a goal in Scotland by Alfredo Morelos against Hearts last season. He does a back heel like that finish. No one's probably seen it, but it's okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, when I rewatch it, it does look like he does that. It hits off the defender, then hits back off his foot or something like that. It's a really strange ricochet. To be fair, he deserves the credit, though. Of course. It actually looks even better that way in the camera on the replay. No, it's excellent. And do you know what? I think after we've always been a bit down tonight, but that's a kind of something we need to take as a positive. See Nunez getting his first Premier League goal early. That's a massive thing. I remember when Crouch came in, and people have a go at Crouch. Crouch was a good striker, but it took him so long to get that, and it became a thing. Remember he misses the penalty against, is it Portsmouth? And it's just like it became a thing where you've got this obstacle. I think getting that first goal out the way first on his debut in the Premier League is a good thing as well for us. So it's an excellent finish to beat the keeper. I think Rodak, who was in, because Leno was on the bench or wasn't in the squad yet. So obviously at this point, Grizz, I'm thinking, right, here we go. We've had a shocker today. Let's get the ball back out. Let's get playing. Let's get the win, go home and deal with the performance later. Just get the 3 points. But unfortunately, it didn't work out that way.
Yeah, unfortunately it doesn't. We get the equaliser. And Keith, I know you spoke on Matip, and I thought Matip was better of the two centre-backs, in my opinion. But then Matip loses the ball in transition. For him, a fairly straightforward pass. Gets intercepted. And then what happens? Well, it would help if he was on, like, you know what I mean?
I knew that was coming. I had to have my moment. No, well, it's so funny you should say that, right? Because literally 2 minutes before, Joel Matip's pass sets the entire goal up for the first goal. He takes out like 5 of the Fulham players for that pass when he passes it to James Milner. So he does that, but I just felt, the thing is, I saw a few people say in the chat, no, I thought Joel Matip was good. I just felt like his shot, he's maybe a week away from being like fully like sharp and fully the Joel Matip that I know him to be, because I personally put Joel Matip on a very, very high pedestal. I still will argue that I think Joel Matip, for all the qualities that he brings, is still, I think, a better option compared to Konate at this moment in time. But that's another debate for another day. So Joel Matip's played this sensational pass. He's the catalyst for the goal, and then he plays a pass. He tries to do it again, but again, he doesn't play the percentages. He's trying to force it too much, and again, he's just the fitness, the legs are just not quite there yet, and we just get counter-attacked. We just get completely.
But by who? This is the worrying part for me. By who?
Because ultimately, Mitrovic. If you see Mitrovic is literally one-on-one with Van Dijk. He's put into a situation where we're not playing with a 2 anymore. James Milner, who I thought had a pretty decent cameo appearance, by the way. I thought he was brilliant.
Shame on us. None of us have mentioned Milner. Shame on us.
He was
brilliant. That's a really good. Milner was good. Milner was
the new bearded James Milner. Obviously, he's been watching the stream, Grizz. He's seen us with, you know what I mean? We've inspired him with this new look. This new look has also gotten a new attacking verve. I thought he was involved in everything. He was very, very dynamic. But ultimately, one thing we've always said, right? Jordan Henderson in the 6 is great in terms of dictating the play, but in terms of the defensive side of things, once you play Henderson, once you take Fabinho out, there is no midfielder with the defensive noggin, and that middle becomes a lot more exposed. So we can get hit like that, and that's exactly what happened. One mistake from Joel Matip, all of a sudden we're hit on a 1v1 between Virgil van Dijk and Mitrovic. And Virgil van Dijk does not cover himself in glory in this situation. He really doesn't, because again, this is the offside situation is un-Virgil-like. He's the one that always sets that trap. Leaving a dangling leg against a man who is probably not gonna, if he's going to dribble past you, you've got Trent coming in from behind. There's no need. You just need to jockey him out of position. There's no need to dangle the leg. It was such a clumsy.
Un-Virgil. I think that's the one.
It's un-Virgil. It's completely un-Virgil-like, and it was. Now you could argue, was it a soft penalty? Was he looking for the contact, etc.? So you can argue all those things, but
I can't wait for Conroy's version of events. I'm coming to Conroy.
When you're playing away at Fulham, and it's a competitive game like that, you're not going to get many. You're not going to get chances from the referee in that situation, in my opinion. Right? You give the referee a reason to find a contact and get them to look hard enough at the VAR. They will look hard enough at the VAR, because it was the ref that called the penalty. Am I right in saying the ref pointed to the spot? So to overturn that when it was a clash of knees and he didn't get the ball, man, you're looking. It's wishful thinking at this stage. So yeah, I think it was just a sloppy situation. It was we were obviously chasing the game. That's why Virgil was in that situation. We had no defensive-minded number 6s to help cover the spaces in that. You literally had Virgil one-on-one. So. A few things at play there, but you can argue we were trying to chase the game, but play the percentages. We spoke about Trent started to play the percentages a little more. Matip should have been playing the percentage in that situation. He would play a simple pass. He did not need to make that pass. I know he made it the first time and he was successful on it. And I suppose when you do it one time, you think, right, well, if I do it once, I can do it again. But when we're playing with such a lack of defensive midfielders in that situation, you've got Harvey Elliott, he's halfway up the other side. You've got Jordan Henderson, who's always looking forward. And you've got James Milner, who's turning into some sort of central attacking midfielder, Ozil guy who's just popping into spaces and pulling off and doing X, Y, and Z because he's got a new beard. There's no space, there's no protection in that midfield. So you could argue that maybe Virgil one-on-one, he shouldn't be in that position, but the decision he makes against a player who, in my opinion, I've never honestly seen Mitrovic perform like this in the Premier League. The guy, this is his second stint in the Premier League. Never seen him perform like this ever. And you know what? Fair play to him. He wins the penalty. The penalty itself was a good enough penalty. Alisson's not a very good penalty saver. I've never really known him to be that.
He's actually unlucky though, Keith, to be fair. He does read him well. It's just a really good penalty, isn't it?
Yeah, I think sometimes for some goalkeepers really to save penalties. I think there's a special type of goalkeepers that save penalties, in my opinion. And just Alisson, anytime a penalty happens, I just don't have the confidence that he's going to save it. Yeah. And it's a great finish, and we literally just undo all the great things we did within a matter of minutes.
He's therefore worked on his penalties though, Keith, because he missed when Scotland got qualified against Serbia, and it was not a very good penalty. So he's definitely worked again. He never used to hit it that low. So
but just very quickly going around the panel for your opinion, if it was a penalty or not, without too much of a chat on it because we've got a few things to get through. One by one, whoever wants to go first.
Gave the referee a decision to make by hanging the leg. It's lazy defending. It doesn't need to be done. Should never put himself in a position where there's a decision to be made there.
At the end of the day, Virgil got done. It wasn't like the one touch. He actually went inside. He's managed to crisscross. Mitrovic, just put that in perspective. Mitrovic has managed to crisscross, like go one with another, and he's not even done it quickly. It'll be in his when he finishes his career, there'll be a few, bad moments he'll say, was a different player playing that day? And that is the definition of that for me. I have no idea what he's doing. It is horrendously bad defending, because even championship defenders would not get done like that. To me, it aired of. The problem with Van Dijk is Van Dijk defends that way, and he's so good at making the striker make a decision and not really getting caught. So I hate when people say he's became arrogant or complacent. That's not true, because he always defends like that. But when you're not having a good game and that happens, it just looks like that. It looks, as Steve says, lazy. For me, it's like, I probably think if it doesn't get awarded, VAR don't give a penalty. But Van Dijk got done. He cannot complain. You got done, mate. Accept the consequences. It's that simple. Like I
think his face gave it. I think his face gave it away.
Chris, see if he put his leg out. We're all having a go at Trent. Or we've all talked to the Twitter was like Trent probably gets there because Mitrovic. It's not a guaranteed goal. So
and he's going on his left foot. So Mitrovic is not known for his left foot.
Would have got sent off if that was the case. He would have got sent off if that was the case. If he didn't try to get the ball, but there was cover there. For the life of me, I think we just have to sugarcoat it as this. It's a write-off for Van Dijk, that game. It's probably one of the worst he's ever had. He's still the best in the world. He's unbelievable. But just that one, just put it under the rug. It's done with. Whatever happened was caused. It was one of the worst performances he's ever had. And I think, to me, on the decision, Grizz, I don't actually think it is a pen. Because I think, like, it's still a contact sport, and he does push his leg away. You say there's a bit of clashing knees. For me, I don't think I think some refs don't give that, but as soon as Madley gives it, VAR ain't going to overturn it because it isn't clear and obvious. There is still contact. So,
Evan, I asked Conroy for a quick answer.
Sorry,
to give me a monologue. Yeah. Quick answer if you thought it was a penalty, and then you can tell me how you felt at that stage. Are we happy to get a draw? Well, I think we are, because it's 10 minutes to go, I believe, or something like that, guys. No, I don't know what minute they scored, but how are you feeling? And did you have hopes of salvaging anything? And then did we lay siege like you thought we were going to lay siege and maybe go into the goal?
To be honest, I'm going to defer to the rest of the panel on whether it was a penalty or not, because just from the angles I was getting, not my choice. I just could not find an angle where I saw the knees collide. Obviously, VAR has access to different things. The referee's in a different position on the pitch. Maybe it's just one of those things that you had to be there to see. Obviously clashes of knees are kind of hard to see because the knee doesn't often protrude in the way that a foot or a leg does. You know what I mean? So yeah, I just couldn't see. If you guys say it was a penalty, albeit a softer call, then yeah, sure, I'll defer to you guys on that. From this point on, I'm still expecting us to probably get another chance, and we do get another chance. Whether we get two goal scoring chances, I'm not quite sure. It's hard to say. And no, unfortunately, we do not constantly siege them in the way we would prefer to. Like to our credit, Grizz, we do get in and around their box in promising positions a few more times, and we do score. So if you were just judging us based on our last 10 minutes of the game, then yeah, we did pretty well. We were behind, came back, scored, we didn't lose. But in the entire scheme of the game, it's obviously extremely disappointing and nowhere near good enough. I thought we had maybe one gilt-edged chance left in us, nothing more. It came as a result of Nunez doing the things that Conroy wants from a big mobile target man type player.
All I could think of was Conroy's chats throughout the summer when that chaos ensued.
Professor Chaos.
Yeah.
That's his
Yeah,
name.
and we scored a scrappy goal. I loved it.
Chaos.
I loved that goal.
I won't say it's scrappy because it still requires a phenomenal pass from Trent Alexander-Arnold, who, lo and behold, once the system starts to resemble something remotely healthy, he looks like a world-class player again. And, although I don't think Nunez is intending to lay it off for Salah, but that's the benefit of having two players with world-class off-the-ball movement playing up top together. I also loved how narrow Salah seemed to get to Nunez on that. I think we're going to eat off of that. That link up is going to be great, because although Salah took his position in the wide triangle in the second half, and like I said, systematically was very familiar. He was stretching the defense to a wide point in that way. When it came time to make runs over the top and to hit some like sort of Hail Mary passes, I liked how narrow he was getting. I was a big fan of that. And if you have a big central striker, then you need to get narrow to them. You know what I mean? Because so Nunez can do all Nunez has to do at many points throughout the future of his Liverpool career. Come back to this video 5 years from now. All he'll have to do, to be honest, to bring his world-class teammates into the game is just run straight into the box, call for the ball, bring it down. Sometimes he'll bring it down and get to shoot. And then other times it'll be as simple as laying it on a plate 2 yards away for a teammate. So I don't think Nunez has to be particularly, pass savvy or have an incredible passing range.
Doesn't
you know what I
even,
mean?
He doesn't, mate.
He doesn't. And there have been plenty of other burly type strikers who are, let's be honest, their gifts are mainly physical, who have had double digit assist seasons in the Premier League just by doing that. So yeah, it's a new approach. It's a fresh approach. I always liked how physically impressive Mane was through the middle when we asked him to be, but this is different. This is a guy who is as fast as Mane, as strong as a center back, and has the eye for goal that you would want a striker to have. So I think from the short cameo we saw of Nunez, both in the Community Shield and based on today, I think we've seen plenty to be excited about. And I think it's safe to say now he's brought in to do his own thing with a unique set of instructions that we haven't seen before. And let's just be happy about that, because at the very least, we want a new signing for that much money to be interesting and to do something new.
Yeah, absolutely. Something new from Nunez.
Wait.
Steve, fucking genius me. Six sometimes.
Oh, come on. That wasn't that great.
Just came to him, didn't it? Through that hat.
No, he was practicing.
All the jokes.
He was practicing in the mirror last night. Let's not get twisted.
People know it's natural, but it's okay. You carry on hating. Steve, take the draw and run. Klopp alluded to it. Take the point and run. We WhatsApped and we said the best thing about that, or if we're gonna have an injury crisis, if we're gonna put one of the most dismal performances in like a year old so, or whatever, how long we can remember the last one, then it's best to do it in the first game week, because we've proven so many times that when we have a kick up, like for example, Virgil, we all spoken and his face was like thunder. He knew he had a poor game. We know Virgil's going to be so good next. Like I feel for Palace. We know Fabinho was disgusted with his performance, probably. We know, forget everything else, Jurgen Klopp was seething with that. And he called it, what did he call it, guys? He said, my mind's gone blank. He said something about that was a loss, the performance of a loss, but I'll take the point as a win. Did you look at it the same way? Is that, that's all we can do.
I think what was really telling was he said, sometimes I give the boys a hug. Today's not one of those days that they get a hug because they didn't play very well. I didn't like that. Don't like the performance. Don't like the attitude. We better not see that again. It's been a while since I've sat here as a Liverpool fan praying for a reaction to a bad performance, because it don't happen like that too often. So we'll get one for sure. We'll get one. You're right. Van Dijk will come away from that game thinking, That's not me. That's not what I do. So come back, double down, and be the Van Dijk that we know. Matip will no doubt have a better game. I just think too many players were off the pace together collectively, and that because of our system is so rigid and so inflexible when it comes to things like that, it just affected the balance of the whole team, and everything went to shit on the day because we just couldn't do the basics properly. Evans alluded to the lack of tactical ability on show. I just think 5 players didn't turn up, and then a 6th and a 7th quickly are added to that because they can't get their game going because they're not getting the ball when they want it. They're not
Name them.
Well, the 3 across the midfield for a start. So there's 3. We know Van Dijk didn't play very well. We know Matip can do better. I thought in the first 15 minutes, some of Trent's passes were really lazy and he gave the ball away. And he's got that languid element to his game where he'll just lean back and try and flip one over the top and it will go straight down the throat of the opposition and suddenly you're on the back foot. And I think because of the way that the game went, I think Bobby Firmino was anonymous. And that's not necessarily his fault. It's because the things that we do that allow him to be Bobby Firmino don't happen. And if all of the pieces of the jigsaw don't work very well, or all the pieces of the system, all the cogs don't spin in the right direction, it has an impact on absolutely everybody. It's not just injuries that make our system fragile. Conroy referenced it before. There is a tendency once or twice for this team to go into games and be mega complacent, kind of like we're Liverpool, we're just like West Ham away, we're Liverpool, we just turned up on the day, never got going. I said it when we had the call in that I read Alan Hansen's autobiography, and he said in the '89 Cup final against Wimbledon, he knew in the tunnel we were not going to win that game because the mental attitude of the players in the tunnel was wrong. And once you get to that position, you can't recover it. Once you get yourself in that mental attitude, that psyche, you can't suddenly have a word with yourself on the pitch and recover it. Hopefully, they've had a bollocking. Hopefully, they're a constructive one. And hopefully, they've had a bollocking and they recognise the things that we need to do better for the next games. What I will caveat it and finish it with is we're on the first game of the season and I'm seeing people surrendering league titles after one game. That is absolutely ludicrous. There's 37 twists and turns to come throughout the season. We played really, really badly and we got a draw. We'll play better than that this season and we still might lose one. So I agree. I think it was you, Keith, that said it. It's a point gained based on the performance because we deserve to lose that match. So rather than sit with glum faces and things, I think we've got to move on, guys. I think we've got to look at what the team can give. I think we know they will do better. You don't become a bad team overnight. I don't know what the hell went on there. I'm sure there's an inquest. I'm sure they will have discussed it. They will put it to bed. They will move on. And I would suggest that as fans, we do the same. If we're sitting here in 2 and 3 games' time and we're still not seeing the sparks and we're still not seeing the Liverpool we know, that's a different conversation. But when 4 or 5 players don't turn up on the day in a system that's as rigid as ours, it spells trouble. And I think we got away with it. I don't think we deserved a point, but we got one.
Just a couple of super chats that probably are relevant to what we want to go and speak about, Conroy. Well, the first one was, I think, just saying LFCR 786 is Diaz was our best player in the first half. I actually agree with him. I thought Diaz showed and tried his best. I just think he had no one to work with and link with. Also, he's only been here 6 months, for fuck's sakes. Hendo, lack of footballing ability, caused the first goal. He's so bad. And then he goes on to say, which I want to speak on, is the pressure on Harvey and Fabio now is a disgrace. Selection says, I've got a question. Do we think Klopp will revert to type and continue playing Hendo right centre midfield, even though it's evident there's better options? Brackets, Elliott. Which leads me on, Conroy, sort of, where do we go from here? Because a lot of injuries. Thiago comes off, which looks like a bad, serious injury. When I say bad, serious injury, hamstring injury. Whoa, is that someone to go on mute, maybe? Is that Evan? It's Evan. No, it's not Evan. So who is it then? But basically a bit of a mini injury crisis with Thiago coming off. Curtis Jones, we're unsure about what the situation is with him. Naby should be back. Is there pressure on Elliott now to really, if he gets a chance to make that place his own through his performances? And B, will Klopp do anything different now? Because all summer we spoke about formation and possible changes, and we were convinced to a man, I think it's fair to say, lads, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think to a man, we actually thought we're going to play slightly differently, tweak things differently. I think as Steve opened up, Evan opened up, we didn't learn nothing new about our team, apart from when we have a stinker, we have a bad stinker, and it's like 5-6 of them have a stinker at the same time. Are we anticipating something different? For example, Palace at home. We know exactly how Palace are going to set up against us. Do you anticipate something different going forward?
Do you mean formation-wise and shape-wise? No, I've got
anything
to be
you
honest.
want, personnel-wise, shape-wise,
Yeah,
whatever you think.
I was not too strong on this. Like, we're going to throw out the baby with the bathwater in our style of play because you're bringing in Nunez. You're equivalently just adding a different option. Instead of having someone coming deep, you're going to someone who runs the channels, or as Evan said earlier, goes for the Trent, golf wedge balls over the top and look to integrate that way as well. There'll be add-ons to that. I think you'll probably see that more in the Crystal Palace game, because I think Nunez is definitely going to start that game. I think that's been confirmed after Firmino's performance yesterday. But I'll be honest, I think the first question on pressure on Elliott, no, because since he's 16, he's been bought for a lot of money. I think we need to stop getting a bit too, emotionally involved here. Not emotionally involved, getting a bit too sentimental because he's a kid. This guy's exceptional talent. He'll embrace having an opportunity to play if it means more game time. I think when you're 16 and you're getting signed for, 8 million, I think you've got enough arrogance in that to be fine with that. So let's not get over the top. And the same with Fabio Carvalho. These guys are talented enough to get in the positions they're in. So I don't think we say pressure, because surely they'll look at it as an opportunity. Because how else do you get in a team if someone's not out? But I get what they're saying. I think that's not pressure. I think it's more, have we left ourselves short? That's maybe what the comment is. Should have we had another midfielder in who can allow... We don't have to rely on a 36-year-old Milner. Maybe that, I would say, is a conversation. And you know what? That might change before the transfer window shuts. There may be someone out there who we can get, who can replace Milner in a couple of years. So it doesn't necessarily need to be your Bellingham signing, but it's someone good enough to come in and give us help. Because let's be honest, guys, right now, I think we started with the season with these players, but Thiago's injuries put a spanner in the works, and we rolled the dice on that, and this is what's came up. So I don't think we're completely finished now, I've got to be honest. And with regard to, say, changes going forward, I think, last season when he played against Chelsea, Elliott played there. I think you'll see similar sort of position like that. I think Elliott comes in first. Maybe Carvalho comes off the bench in these games. I think Elliott's more proven for the Premier League games so far. So I think you'll see him, and I think he'll suit. He'll come in, no bother. I would say, with regard to Nunez, it'll be really exciting to see a full 90-minute game with Nunez under us and see how we approach it. Because as Evan said, we went kind of gun-ho against Fulham, so obviously it's just Hail Mary stuff. And then against City, it was a bit more in-depth because it was like, a bit more intricate, getting wide on the counter, because City were trying to level the game. So it will be interesting to see how we play Nunez when it's 0-0 from the start. But I think it will be still stick to what we're good at and maybe just try a few different things when he runs the channels, and it not as coming as deep as someone like Bobby. But I think overall, it's not going to be like we're going to rip up the strategy book next week.
Hey, Grizz, I kind of want to go next on that question, if I could just piggyback off of what Conrad said. So, yeah, it's you don't rip up everything when you're in our position in terms of how good we are, right? We're not going to switch to the 4-2-3-1. We're not going to drastically change player instructions. We're just going to get more match fit. We're going to regain some confidence, some mental fortitude, because we have put teams far, far superior to that Fulham team yesterday to the sword with that exact lineup in that exact system, doing basically the exact same thing. One thing that I think will be interesting to see with Nunez in a 90-minute period is, let's assume Nunez started the game today instead of Firmino. And if you guys noticed this, one thing I thought the best thing I think Fulham did tactically all game, other than want the ball more than us in plenty of situations, was they said no diagonals. There will be no diagonals today. There's going to be no diagonals from Trent. There's going to be no diagonals from Van Dijk. That ball is off limits. We are going to beat Salah and Diaz to every single one of these balls. And you could see Van Dijk getting frustrated. He'd hit a pass. He tried to hit his trademark diagonal, and he'd immediately throw his hands up in the air in frustration because the fullback had already been cheating over to that side in anticipation. So what I think Van Dijk and Trent and the guys who are expected to hit those passes might be, more obliged to do if they have 3 or 4 diagonals intercepted in a row is just to go over the top to Nunez. Because if the fullback's cheating over in anticipation of a pass out to Salah, because he knows that pace-wise Firmino isn't a threat over the top, and it's Firmino, he's probably not going to be making that run, then imagine if it's Nunez and the fullback's cheating over to the side. Then you can hit a ball over the top and Nunez is isolated, hopefully, with one of the center backs. So sometimes, obviously I love it when we do a bunch of 1-2 flashy, wide triangle shit that I've already talked about. But when things are going horribly, and like Steve says, the defensive line, midfield line, and forward line are all collectively having an off day, then sometimes football is as simple as kick the ball over the top to your most athletic presence and see if you can eat off of that. And lo and behold, we did in the second half. Trent hits a ball over the top to the athletic presence. And Salah, instead of waiting out on the wing for a diagonal, goes narrow. So I think Nunez can be, over the course of 90 minutes when we start a game, if we start games poorly, I think he can be a bit of a get-out-of-jail-free card in a sense, in terms of just making something happen. Because if you're struggling, you know what I mean, you're familiar, your tactical familiarity isn't sharp as it is. You don't have your recognizable standards.
Running out of ideas, stuff like that.
Yeah, you start to lose confidence. You start to lose the mental attitude that you guys were just talking about. But if you can get an opening over the top, then it reinvigorates the team to wait. It's like, okay, our game plan isn't going to plan, but here's this option that we've discovered in the game. So I think Nunez can bail us out in a very direct way. I'm sure, I can only imagine he's going to score plenty of goals when the team is absolutely running like a well-oiled machine, because he'll just have to stand in the box and the ball will arrive to him on a platter. But I think he can bail us out when we're playing poorly. And I think that's why Firmino was perhaps so ineffective, because he was trying to do his traditional Firmino industrious work in the center in the false nine. And unfortunately, that was probably our weakest third of the pitch yesterday.
Maths sends in a super chat. Appreciate the support. He says, if we had ballers in midfield, we wouldn't need long ball. If Thiago, Fabinho, Elliott aren't ballers to you, then I don't know who's a baller to you.
And the Van Dijk switch, sorry Steve, just the Van Dijk switch, I wouldn't call that a long ball either. That's like the passing ability of a top central midfielder who's a centre back. So that makes you different from 95% of all our football teams in the world. So you're going to use that. I think what Evan is saying as well, that if you have Nunez there, it means either he's going to get space or Salah's going to get space as well with the overload, as you said, Evan. So it's like we've got something that not even Man City have got there. It's an instrument we've got. So I think that's why we use it with Trent and Van Dijk.
The reason they were cheating over to the side to prevent the long ball, the long diagonal, is not just because it instantly bypasses build-up and gets us to where we want to be quicker. It's because they're recognizing that Firmino running over the top against Ream, they're kind of roughly the same stature in terms of speed. But, the fullback will think twice of cheating over to Salah's side to prevent the diagonal if it's Nunez running over the top against Ream. Because Nunez will have Ream on a platter in a 1v1 respectfully, and he will have most non-athletic type center backs on a platter. So, yeah, that's what I would anticipate to change. Yeah. And it's a curveball that you want to have. You know what I mean? Liverpool City, known for playing attractive, flowing football. Teams are going to set up to prevent the wide triangles and the long switches. So every once in a while, you hit a Hail Mary, and guess what? It's not this traditional, Brexit football where you're just hoofing it up to an attacker. It's Trent Alexander-Arnold hitting a ball over the top. So it's not like it's just your shithouse fullback hoofing it forward. It's held to a bit of a higher standard than that.
And it's the term. It's not a long ball. It's the right ball.
Yep.
So at times when you talk about press resistance isn't just sidestepping someone who's running at you, screaming at you from 20 yards away, saying, I'm going to stop you doing something. It's about giving a ball to a man and making your entire defensive unit press resistance by hitting a 60-yard laser-guided ball right, left to right. Suddenly you're in round the back of them and you score goals. That, as you said, Evan, that's not just a shithouse hoof up the pitch. I noticed very, very early on when we did that, that is exactly what the Fulham fans were shouting, hoof. That they need to get some songs, man. They need to go and find some chants, because all the stuff your shit are when a goalkeeper's taking a goal kick is really old school, isn't it? So the terminology long ball is doesn't fit in what we do. It's the right ball, and that goes back as far as Bob Paisley used to say. It's not a long ball; it's a right ball. And it's correct. It is the right ball.
Just very quickly before we wrap up, with my final question to you all. Shout out to Born and Red. They've started a new channel, Liverpool channel. Go and give them a subscribe, people. I probably come to you, Steve, again. The situation now is that we have Konate out, which looks like possibly 6 weeks out, roughly. We have, which is fine, should be fine, if Matip and Gomez and Van Dijk stay healthy. We have Tsimikas, which is fine. He'll be back in the squad this week training. Naby Keita will be back in this week training. The X factor that everyone wants to talk about now is the midfield and the injury to Thiago, which limits our options in midfield. So, very quickly, guys, top of my head, what's our options? We have Hendo, Fabinho, Naby, Elliott.
Fab, Carvalho and Jones.
I am not going to count Carvalho because there's no evidence of Jurgen Klopp playing him there.
Yeah, is the question, Grizz, just our options for Palace? We're not looking farther ahead than that.
We're looking further.
Okay.
So we're looking at Thiago. Let's just say roughly 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Right. We're saying 4 to 6 weeks for Konate, but he'll be all right because we're covered in that position. Curtis Jones, we haven't been specified a time. So we don't know. We just don't know. At the moment, we have Elliott, Fabinho, Henderson, Naby, Milner. For the next, let's just say, for the chats and our debate purposes, to survive until 4 to 6 weeks. The window closes in 3 weeks, people, am I right? 3 to 4 weeks?
I think so, yeah.
What do you think? Do you think the club stance will change? Jurgen Klopp alluded to the fact before all these injuries that nothing is going to happen until someone leaves. Obviously, Ox got injured before any chance of him leaving, or we have injuries. He's himself said, I don't know what's the issue with Curtis Jones, but it's just it can stress the injury out and it could be painful, even though he doesn't feel it sometimes. So we don't know what that means. Thiago's hamstring, we don't know. He's an old man now. Let's accept it for where it is. Naby falls ill sporadically, randomly, whatever. My point being, guys, and this is a question to all and everyone, have they say, do we change the strategy? Do we change our way of thinking? Do we need to dip into the market and bring a body in?
Yeah.
Is this one of those emergencies that Klopp talks about, or do we still have enough and we wait until at least January?
We do need to bring someone in. I think we all recognise that. We've been saying that for weeks.
Yep.
What we will do is play a double pivot and Elliott and Carvalho left or right, and certainly do that against Palace. That's the way I see that. I don't think Jones can play in a three in the same way that Thiago, Henderson and Fabinho have been trying to do. We have to. Sensible thing says we have to go and buy that one of the two. The one we can't have, forget that till next year. But we always thought, and we've had this conversation before, we needed two. So let's go and get the second one right. Let's go and test into Milan's resolve for someone like a Nicola Barella, who would be absolutely superb in our midfield. Whether they do that or not, I don't know. I'm sure none of our opinions have altered from yesterday's game. We absolutely need to strengthen our midfield. But in the case we don't, I can see it being a double pivot, which is what we did in the year when we had all the injuries and we managed to scrape back to third place.
I think, honestly, so I'm a big believer in what takes place in the training pitch. I don't like the idea of losing a large number of personnel for the boys to then go to the training pitch and start having to do, matchups against the under-23s and the under-18s that we need to pull in to fill in these type of positions. It's quite clearly obvious that Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain is out of the door. That's sorted. The injuries, it just doesn't make sense anymore. Thiago is becoming very, very apparent that the injuries are going to be what we always knew was going to be the case. He's not going to be out of the door, but he's not going to be someone that you can rely on. Naby Keita, the illness, it could be COVID, could be something like that. I'll give him the bye in that particular situation. We have for a number of years have been relying on Fabinho to do that particular job that he does. Right, we play with a double pivot now. It's pretty obvious that Thiago and Fabinho are the two that sit to some extent. Yes, the left, Thiago might get a little bit more freedom to go forward. We don't have enough midfielders who are defensively minded. That's the biggest gap we have had in this position for some time. We've spoken about it on this channel numerous times. There is a reason why we went after a profile of the caliber of someone like Tchouaméni, and there's a reason why we've gone after a caliber of someone like Jude Bellingham. Steve, you talk about the two, that is two, in my opinion. One of the profile of Tchouaméni, one of the profile of Jude Bellingham. Jude Bellingham, a bit more of a forward-thinking forward player, midfielder, someone that's going to make things happen, someone that could almost rotate with someone like Harvey Elliott. Yes, that is the profile. The Tchouaméni profile, it stands to reason that we would have built a lot of money to try and get this player in. So let's not faff about with the Tchouaméni. If we're going to wait for Bellingham, okay, let's wait for Bellingham. Let's wait till the summer. Let's see if we can test the resolve then. With the profile that we built for Tchouaméni, we need to find a player of that caliber, and we need to find him before the window closes. Because for me, at this moment in time, I have big concerns about Fabinho at the moment. I have concerns with him because I think that at times he can play himself into form, pick up knocks, takes a while to play himself back into form, big hole in that midfield. The idea that Jordan Henderson is going to rotate with Fabinho in that number 6 role, in my personal opinion, is a dangerous game to play, because all of a sudden, if Fabinho picks up a slight knock, then all of a sudden you're asking Jordan Henderson to play in a 2 with someone like a Curtis Jones or a Naby Keita, and all of a sudden teams are counter-attacking us for fun, as what was the case when Fulham got the break for their penalty. It is absolutely... And I'm not the type of person to be going on and saying, no, we need to be buying X, Y, and Z. That position, I've said it, since this channel has started, is the one profile that we signed a player 5 years ago to fill that profile. That player has now come into a situation where I'm looking. Today I watched Rodri. I watched Rodri for Manchester City. If Rodri gets injured, Manchester City are in big trouble. That is the caliber of midfielder that we need to be playing for Liverpool Football Club if we are going to continue to challenge against Manchester City. A player that is reliable, a player that is defensively minded, and a player that has the technical ability to make things happen with the ball, taking it out of taking that ball out of defense and into midfield. So I think it will be very, very, very. We are going to put ourselves in a similar situation to what happened when we finished third if we do not find the caliber that can rotate and compete with the position that Fabinho currently holds in this Liverpool midfield. So it's absolutely of the utmost importance. We've got 3 weeks to go. Sometimes you need to make things happen. There's a lot of European clubs that are still looking for money, that are still, Premier League, the difference in the financial power between the Premier League and everybody else has been shown time and time again this summer, and we need to address this position, or else we're going to be in a very awkward position. Even Spurs have done it. They got Bentancur, right? And he's already showing the levels that's needed in that midfield. And he's already making a huge difference in that midfield. We need to do the same.
Evan, Conroy, whoever wants to go first.
No, I think I'm not going to spend... I already took my time earlier on a point, which was maybe a quick answer. I think Keith's kindness and Steve before that have summed it up very well. I agree with both those thoughts. The only question is, Keith and Steve, who do you think we could get realistically? And I know
Barella.
Evan had... well, you said Barella. Is that a realistic one, though, Steve, or Liverpool, with FSG kind of operate with someone like him? I mean...
It's not FSG, mate. It's Liverpool, isn't it?
Yeah, but you know what I'm talking about, though, like...
FSG.
No, but you know what I'm saying, Steve? I'm saying that the way we go after certain players, right, is there any realistic way that he's going to sign for Liverpool that we would go with someone like that because the due diligence we do on players? You've got Nunez
Well,
as well as
it
a
helps them buy
possibility.
Lukaku. It helps them buy Lukaku should they choose to do that at the end of his loan agreement, because they got him for £7 million on loan. They don't have Lukaku purchase money. They sell Barella to us. They can buy Lukaku. So there is a mathematical solution to them bringing Lukaku back on the books permanently. They're going to have to sell somebody to do that. Italian football's struggling, like Keith says, financially. It's in a mess.
2 super chats that are relevant, and that's why I'm going to come into them, and then you can carry on, Conroy, and of course Evan. Those four that you named probably didn't have 15 assists combined last season, and they don't shoot. Must be tactical. He goes on to say, we don't have a midfielder with a pace or a shot. Why?
I thought the MF didn't mean midfielder. Sorry.
and then we've
probably does.
And then we've got an opposing opinion, which Nerbeats, shout out Nerbeats, the super chat. He says, athletic, technical midfielders are needed. You can't find those easily. I'm with Klopp. A new player needs to make sense long-term, not just quick fixes. Sorry, continue, whoever was.
Well, I was just going to say, the one player I think maybe we've not mentioned, and Evan, who's mentioned this already, it's not my shout, but he mentioned Leimer. I think that's how you pronounce it correctly, at Leipzig. Now, that might be something that would not break the bank, but would be a fit that would mean is when if you maybe get a Bellingham in the summer as well, you can still contest for the team, but not being expected to start every game. So I just want, as Evan mentioned, it's his point, but I've looked a bit into him, and I feel like that would be a realistic sign we could get. Along with, I get what you're saying, though, Steve, Varela as well. I completely get that. I'm a big fan. So they're the two I would kind of say that realistically. Another one, Grizz, just before Evan talks. See, you know who I was thinking about the other day, who for me would be a great sign. It's never going to happen. But you know, Dewsbury Hall, he's the one player that I think, because he's young right now and he's not been exposed in England, you can maybe, but I don't know his contract situation. I've got a feeling he may have just signed a new deal. Something's ringing in my head about that. But he's the type of player that I've always been impressed with and would suit our team, I feel anyway.
Evan, 2 names for you from El Lad, Mateus Nunez and Kudio Kone from Gladbach.
Yeah, big fans of both of those players. Here, okay, I'm going to try and not go on for longer than needed.
No, you are the final say. Take your time. You are the final say.
Okay, so yesterday's result hasn't... Can I safely speak for the entire panel when I said that yesterday's result, whether we win, lose, or draw in any fashion, we would all still have the same opinions on the midfield situation regardless. Okay.
100%. Yeah. Just to add, I don't think the midfield situation caused the result. However, it is a long-term situation.
No, like the only thing I think the result does is we're having this conversation perhaps sooner than we anticipated. Because I'm pretty sure we all anticipated having this conversation at some point. Thiago was going to get injured at some point. Okay, so let's get some givens out of the way. Liverpool rely on a bunch of injury-prone players in midfield. That is a given. That is true. Nobody debates that. That no matter what side of the fan base you sit on, because it's all very polarizing these days, as we know. No one's debating that. Liverpool rely on injury-prone players in midfield. As you guys know, I've gone on many monologues on this channel in the past 12 months when we haven't played well or we've dropped points, is that I'm not a huge fan with the new approach in midfield that we introduced at the start of the previous season. This would see the right-sided and the left-sided, to a certain extent, pushing forward more than we were used to, because we were used to Wijnaldum being a very conservative, restrictive presence. Now, regardless of what we all feel individually about Wijnaldum as a player, or, you know, his technical ability, his role in the team, whatever, one thing is absolutely ironclad, not up for debate. We controlled more games when Gini Wijnaldum played 99% of Liverpool's minutes in a given season. And again, that's we were using him how we would use him, and now that he's left, we've changed internally, and that's fine. Internal solution, all good. One thing that Wijnaldum's departure and just relentless availability as well has left us with is not only do we have a bunch of midfielders that we rely upon who are not available, as I've already established, we have a distinct, glaringly obvious lack of athleticism in midfield. In the position, many would say, where athleticism is of the most pertinence. Absolutely. Like you can have slow defenders, you can have slow attackers, and it could still be world class, but you can't carry a bunch of slow midfielders. Now, Fabinho is coming off of his most available season for Liverpool. Last season, he played the majority of the minutes. I've done statistical work on this. Go check out my Twitter. Henderson is also coming off of his most quote-unquote available season for Liverpool. Naby Keita and Thiago both played less than 50% of the available minutes last season. Grizz recently alluded to this on Twitter, I believe. Is that correct, Grizz? I think I saw you tweet something about that. The biggest difference between Liverpool and Man City is in midfield, or the biggest on-pitch difference between Liverpool and Man City, I should say, is that they get their best midfielders on the pitch way more often than we do. That is the biggest difference between Liverpool and Man City. Although the title came down to a hair's width last season, they won the title because it's a 38-game season. They won the title because they got their midfielders on the pitch way more. Kevin De Bruyne was not very available for them last season by his own standards, but he was sure as hell a lot more available than Naby Keita and Thiago Alcantara. And that is, kind of what I'm saying. Going back to the stylistic thing, if we're going to have two central midfielders playing either side of Fabinho that are pushing up and pressing and doing what we'd like them to do in this more midfield or this more gung-ho approach in the post-Wijnaldum era, cool. I've seen the benefits of that. We became a lot more prolific last season than we were in 18-19 and 19-20. But you need someone like Tchouaméni, who is this hyper-athletic, absolute unicorn profile of player, to not only be technically adept enough to not look out of place next to Mohamed Salah and Trent in 5 to 10 yard ranges, but you also need someone who can hustle back and prevent things like Mitrovic going isolated with Trent Alexander-Arnold in the air at the back post. So Jordan Henderson cannot do that, in my opinion. I think Jordan Henderson's a fine option. I love the intangibles he brings to this team, but he's not going to be the midfielder who's going to bail us out when we're all playing like shit. I think we all saw that yesterday. So, but to summarize, yes, we are injury prone in this part of the pitch, and it's unwise to rely on such players. You can only carry so many injury prone players in a squad. But the bigger problem for me is we have a lack of players in the midfield who currently suit what we're trying to do tactically. Fabinho, keep in mind, is not the purest athlete himself. He's not the fastest. He's not the strongest. He doesn't have the craziest vertical. So we need to surround him with people, dare I say it, like Jorginho Wijnaldum, a player who is relentlessly available, a physical freak, can play almost every single game. And it's no coincidence we were extremely consistent in that era. So someone like Konrad Laimer, someone like Tchouaméni, Bellingham, those are obviously the dreams, but they're not available for this window for some reason or another. But I'm not a fan when people propose attacking midfielders who don't have any standout physical attributes for the midfield. Respectfully, we have plenty of those. We have Curtis Jones, we have Harvey Elliott. Apparently, Fabio Carvalho long-term is going to do that as well. Maybe not this season, but maybe next. We have enough technical midfielders with decent passing ranges and close control. We need a fucking tank who can play 35 of the 38 games if need be. And that, for me, is what's missing from our midfield currently.
Ladies and gentlemen of the chat, I think Evan has spoken. I think, unless somebody wants to interject and correct me or Evan, I think he's spoken on behalf of the REDFELLAS tonight in terms of that topic and that conversation and that question that was DM'd to me on every platform that I have. Grizz, will you address the central midfield issue? Grizz, do the REDFELLAS think we need to? Grizz, are you guys top Reds that only see through rose-tinted glasses? Back the club. Are FSG culpable? Is Klopp stuck? All of these questions. We've given you our opinions. And Steve, like Steve said, We're just fans sitting on a laptop or computer, whatever, giving our opinions. That's all we can do. The rest is up to the owners, working in conjunction with sporting directors, scouting systems, top of the range scouting systems, and one of the most elite coaches possibly ever the Premier League has seen. They will decide what they will decide. Just like you guys, we've given our opinions. You guys have asked the questions. We've given our opinions. We have 3 weeks to see what will happen. But we have 37 more game weeks to be supporting the club that we love. And in my opinion, that's far, far more important than a transfer of a central midfielder that may come in or may not come in. It's absolutely vital. It's absolutely vital that we, as a collective, and people say, oh, what difference do we make? I tell you what difference, because the more people are influenced, and I'm talking about match-going people at home and away, the more they are influenced by social media and everything, it affects the atmosphere at matches. Trust me, it does. It slowly, not yet, it hasn't. I've never been to a game where we boo Henderson like we boo Henderson on social media. I've never been to a game in all my time that people say some of the shit to Matip that they say online, or to Trent that they say online. But if we continue this trend of just feeling like lambasting player X, Y, Z, then it's just a matter of time. And we've seen it in other fan bases, i.e. Arsenal's, United's. And when it gets to that toxic levels where it emanates into the ground, then you're fucked. Then you're just like any other club. We're not like any other club. We're just not like any other club when it comes to support. But it is what it is. Each to their own. People do what you got to do, what you feel is right. I'm not policing your opinions. I'm giving you mine. I'm just suggesting that our first job, almost, if you've nominated yourself or agreed to be a Liverpool supporter, is to be a Liverpool supporter. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a fantastic show. It's been a 2-hour special. Maybe it required it after the bit of a damp squib of a start. But hey, we've had worse starts. I can't remember any top of my head, but I'm sure we've lost on our opening day before. People let me know. I can't remember the last time. But it is what it is. We go again because that's what we do. No one will be hurting more than Klopp and the boys. They haven't posted anything on their socials. Imagine the pain they're going through. If we're angry and frustrated, imagine what these guys are going through right now over the weekend, and Jurgen Klopp himself. They live for this club. They want to die for this club. Let's keep supporting them. Guys, was there anything else that anybody wanted to say anything?
No, just that to anybody in the chat, I'm going to be at the Palace game on Monday. So if any of you guys are there, see a big giant prancing around, give us a hello. It'd be great to meet you guys.
We're not doing the wrestling today. We're not doing the wrestling today. Love Island just ended. Keith's sideshow appearances on this channel need to end.
Quick, Keith, come on. Was the only because he's one of our great mods.
Love the introduction of Karrion Kross, and go on Twitter right now and see what Bray Wyatt is saying, because it's getting a little bit cryptic. Shout out, Mustafa.
Nice one, guys. Come on. It would be not a REDFELLAS, and if Keith didn't have to answer a WWF wrestling question. Connor, I think he was on mute. Maybe you tried to say something.
No, I was just saying you have to. It's
traditional. It's tradition now. But people, hope you've enjoyed tonight's show. If you haven't somehow forgotten, or you're angry with us, or you didn't agree with us and you haven't liked the stream, like it before you go out. It'll help so much. I believe we have over 300 likes, which is fantastic. Let's see if there's about 50 of you can make it 350. That would be amazing. We'll be back next week for the REDFELLAS podcast. Before that, we will have a preview. Before that, I will liaise with Evan if he's any chance of a draft this week, because there's no other game this week. So maybe, but we don't know. Oh, okay. We got a thumbs up from Evan. Woohoo! We may have a draft. Oh my God, I'm excited already. Okay. So something to look forward to. We may have a draft in the offing. Amazing. Apart from that, we'll be back. Keep an eye on the community tab on the channel to know if what other shows are coming up. Peace, love, tranquility to all.